Thanks for joining, everybody. Welcome to Rumi's May webinar. We're very excited to welcome James Daniel back from Precision Grazing. James, I'll pass on to you in a sec, but I believe you're going to be talking about how to manage a grass surplus as growth rates take off again. Also, just want to say we've got the Rumi team on the call here, got Johannes, Britta and Charlie. And actually want to really welcome Charlie, who's our kind of farmer community manager. And Charlie has a degree in farming and business management from Harper Adams. So we're really pleased to have him on the team. And it's quite likely you'll be hearing from him in the future as well as me. So yeah, you'll be in very good hands with him. So to get started, I'm gonna do a quick intro to the product again. I do apologise to people who've seen this before. We've just got a few new people in the room, so for their benefit, okay, we'll just run through stuff. If you want to know more later, just give me a shout and we'll be prepared to give you a demo or talk through in detail another time. So who are we? What is Rumi? We help farmers do rotational grazing and we provide insights that enable them to take the best decisions easily and early. It's a digital product, it's an app, but we also are providing support and advice around that to make it as easy as possible to farmers to get the best results from rotational grazing. We think there are some real valuable benefits to this, starting off first and foremost with increasing farm profits. So by growing more grass, we think we can help you reduce your fertilizer spend and also reduce your... Hello? All good? Then, of course, improving soil resilience, so getting your grass to grow to restore the natural productivity of the soil with reduced fertilizer input, and therefore improving your business resilience over time as well. By sequestering more carbon into the soil through grass growth, you'll be having a really positive impact on the environment. And then last but not least, we think we can improve your work-life balance. So in helping you to take the right decisions earlier and giving you confidence in taking those right decisions, we can buy you back time later to give you back time. So quickly, we like to talk about how it works because we know there's often questions around this and there is some complexity to what we do. I'm going to try and make it simple. So Rumi provides you with dry matter readings. We get readings from Sentinel-2 European satellites, which take multispectral pictures every time it gets a cloud-free pass. That's every 4 to 5 days. We'll get an image and we can provide you with dry matter readings for your fields. We're currently in the process of integrating, but it's not integrated yet, also radar data from European Sentinel-1 satellites. And these can see through clouds and they also pass every couple of days, every 2 days. So once we get this integrated, we'll be able to really improve the frequency of dry matter readings we provide you. At the same time, we have a grass growth model and we can give you machine learning predictions of daily growth. So we have 10 pretty high spec weather stations across the UK in our pilot farms. And we use the soil temperature to predict the grass growth in your fields between satellite passes. And finally, as a farmer, you can also enter your own plate meter readings. So this is to calibrate your farm. We recommend you put in a couple of farm walks at the start. It will help you get better results from the satellite if you give us some readings to start with. It also can bridge satellite passes. And of course, we tell you how accurate our readings are compared to your own plate meter. So it's a way of you building up that trust and transparency for what we're doing. We have a project with 10 pilot farms across the UK and Mark, who's with us tonight in Northern Ireland. So as I was saying, we've got weather stations there. Our farmers are taking weekly cut and weigh samples from 3 fields that then get sent away for lab analysis. Each farmer is equipped with a GPS plate meter, so we get pinpointed plonk readings for every plonk that's taken. So we're getting really good access to ground truth data across these 10 farms, and that's running for the whole of the 2021 season. So I'm just gonna jump into the product quickly and give you a quick demonstration of how it works. Again, I apologize if you've seen this already, but hopefully maybe you learn something new every time, and we'll try and keep it short. So here's the product. Log in. Great. So this is our demo farm. And in the top left corner here, you can see the average farm cover. And we've designed it as well so you see the variation of cover across each field. So if you hover your mouse, you'll be able to see the variation in total cover. And if you click into a field, it will show you the average cover for that field. And also, if you've got your group entered, it will show you the available dry matter, and you can set your residuals as well. It's really easy to add a new field, and I'll just stick one in quickly, show you how quickly it computes. So this plus button at the corner here, you can get a lot of functionality from that. And so adding groups, adding covers, or adding fields. We call this test field. And you can even spell it right as well if you want. You can draw your field boundaries wherever you want. We provide you aerial photography to just assist you. And then you can spend a bit of time with the geometry to get it exactly as you want. Once you're happy, just press save. And we know that previous companies who tried to do this they could take days to compute this stuff. So we're pretty happy that it happens in seconds with Rumi. So if you want to add your own farm walk with a plate meter to calibrate your farm at the start, which we recommend everybody does a couple of because it will get you better results. Again, it's the plus button. So it's the plus button for many things. If you go to add cover, you can stick in the date of your time walk, your farm walk, start time and end time, however long it takes you. Click next. We'll then show you all the Rumi readings down the left. And all you have to do is go through and type in your new readings down the right-hand side. So whatever they might be. I'm just going to type in a couple for now. But you can enter all of your fields. You can enter one or two. It's up to you. And then click next. Now, if there is a drop of over 500 kilograms of dry matter per hectare, we detect that and we ask you what the reason is. So we think there might be a grazing event, or you've mown it for silage, or it's part grade, so it's grazed. You can simply type in what the cover was when the animals came in. So I don't know, maybe 3,400. The date they came in on. So let's say it was the 14th at 12 o'clock. And they came out at, let's say 1,500, something like that. And let's say 2 days later. And again, you can set these times to whatever is right for you. We've got two here. And then this one, you could just say, if there's no event, it's just adjustment, you could say no event, and then click next. So we will tell you how accurate Rumi was within plus minus 200 kilograms of dry matter per hectare for the fields which you didn't add grazing events into. So we don't measure our accuracy against where you've told us about a grazing or cutting event. We're just telling you how close our satellite readings are to your plate meter. And so hopefully that'll give you a much better feeling for Rumi's trustworthiness. Okay, so I'm just getting to a few more things on the demo, and then going to pass over to James for what will be the most exciting part of the webinar. You don't have to enter a whole farm walk to adjust your covers. So if you're on the fly and you've just grazed a field, and maybe it's on your mobile as well, if you click any field and you click the plus button, you can simply put in a grazing event straight there and then for that one field. So with a farm walk, you might have to remember the grazing events you've done over the last week and enter them all in. This is like, you can literally just open it in your mobile, tap it in there and then, and it's done. Also, the pencil sign is maybe there's not a grazing event, but you can see, or you've measured that a field just isn't quite how you think it should look, and you can adjust that just to get it right. Then finally, this on our demo farm, you'll see we've got quite a few animal groups entered, and it really is worth entering your animal groups to get the best out of the product. So in order to actually be able to see your pasture wedge and find out things like grazing days ahead, your average cover, your residuals, this is all in the grazing wedge, and it only shows up once you've entered your animal groups. So a couple of people have asked, how do we enter the animal groups? I just want to show you one to give you an impression of how simple it is. So again, it's this plus button at the corner. Go to add group, and we're going to call this growing cattle. You can add as many stock classes as you want as well. You can have as many groups as you want, and you can have as many different stock classes in each group. So we'll put 2 different stock classes in this one. So we've got some heifers. The average animal weight is 320 kilograms, 30 of them, and they're consuming 8 kilograms of dry matter per hectare per day. But then let's say I've also got some steers in with this group. So I'm going to click on add another stock class, give it a name, whatever name suits you best. Got 350 weight and 35 animals. And these guys are consuming 8.6 kilograms of dry matter per hectare per day. We also, we show you the percentage body weight that's being consumed as well. So hopefully this speaks to both dairy farmers and beef and sheep. And then simply click save. And it says that the demand is 0, and that's because you haven't assigned any fields to the group yet. So as soon as we start adding fields, you'll see what the demand is. You can click on the assign field button, or you can also just click on the map so you can see where it is. It's this more options button, and then you can go move to growing cattle, and then work your way around. It's relative. It's pretty intuitive, really. We'll just add a couple more so that the grazing wedge looks good. Nearly done, nearly done, nearly done. Okay, add one more. So that's a simple way to add your fields. I think given more time, we would add more fields into this, but you can then see, the demand is 73 kilograms of dry matter per hectare per day. You're then given your button and you can access your grazing wedge. You can set, if you're a sheep farmer, you could set a lower residual or a higher one if you want to protect your covers. You could look at a different rotation length, which I think James is going to actually talk about in detail next in his bit. But you then have access to your grass wedge and you can play around with the settings. And in the home screen, you'll see your animal group growing cattle here. So we show you right at the front your demand, your available dry matter, and your average cover for that group. Great, so that was just a quick demo. Feel free to ask questions later, and I'm going to actually pass over to, I've got one more slide actually. Just a quick recap on to get the best out of the Rumi product and some of the things we've just shown you, we really recommend getting your animal groups in soon. That will help you get the full functionality. Enter a few farm walks to get started. You'll get the best data. You can enter those grazing and mowing events as you go on your mobile. And then whenever you just see something looking a bit off, please feel free to adjust it as you wish. And the final thing I was going to say was you don't actually need to wait for a satellite pass to compare Rumi readings against your plate meter, because our grass growth model is continuously giving you daily predictions anyway. So you can compare us for accuracy on any day of the week. And with that, I'll stop sharing and I'll hand it over to James, who I think is going to run through a few case studies with some of the farmers we've got on the call tonight. So pretty excited for that. Over to you, James.
Cool, thanks, Paddy. Just a quick chat. Does anyone have any questions for Paddy before we move on from that? No? Okay, cool. All right, guys.
Okay.
No worries. Yeah, so thanks everyone for joining us. Yeah, I think I know most of the guys on the call. So yeah, Chris, Angus, James, Adrian, Colin, nice to have you with us this evening. Yeah, Roger included. I haven't met you guys yet, but yeah, thanks for joining us. What I'm going to do this evening then is just a quick chat about where we are in the season. We're hopefully at a very exciting stage on pretty much all farms across the country now. We've reached point of magic day where grass growth, our supply, meets our farm demand. And we track quite a lot of farm covers and growth in Wales, and sheep beef farms sort of reached that date on about the 7th of May this year, and the dairy farms sort of reached that date about the 15th of May. So we're 2 to 4 weeks behind normal, behind our average spring. So we're quite a lot later with that magic day arriving. And that's made for a challenging spring. So we're going to hear from Jonathan Chapman, beef farmer in Devon, about how his spring's gone and how his management's going now. Then we'll also hear from Mark Johnston, dairy farmer in Ireland. Again, similar sort of story, but obviously we've got 2 different stock classes, 2 different enterprises, and farms that are sort of set up slightly differently and in different positions. So hopefully by talking to those guys, we can maybe answer some of the questions you've got about how you should manage your growth on the farm now, and also sort of cover management going forward. Spring, or this stage of spring, once we get past magic day, we're at the time now where we should hear that cash register should be ringing every day of the week. So we should be turning animals into ample amounts of grass that's the perfect height for them, of great quality, and they should be either gaining weight, lots of weight, or producing lots of milk. And all of that is money in the bank, although it's not money that's in the bank yet, but it's money that will be in the bank shortly, hopefully. So really good, positive time of year to be farming. We've waited a long time this season to get here. So let's not cock it up. I think it's hopefully the theme for the evening. Jonathan, if you're right, we'll start with you. So you mind muting yourself? Yeah. So yeah, Jonathan, sucker beef farmer from Devon. Could you tell us a little bit about the farm, Jonathan? Sort of what's your land like? What animals are on the farm?
Yeah. So we got 200 pedigree Angus suckler cows. Take everything through to finish. The farm's about 500 acres of grass, and it's quite rolly, hilly sort of rolling hill ground, and it's all clay. So yeah, proper clay wet farm.
Yeah, I can testify. I haven't been there in the winter. Not even the winter, Jonathan. I think that was early spring, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's definitely very wet. Yeah, and despite the slopes, they seem to more catch the water than to let it run off for some reason. So.
Yeah. It can be challenging.
Yeah. So talk us through spring of this year, Jonathan. And so I guess from calving forward, how's the spring been for you?
Yeah. So we had no sheep in over the winter, so we went out with loads of grass. I thought, we're gonna have too much grass, I was fearing, but we've had I think we had 3 mil of rain in April. Yeah, quite a dry March, and it went from really wet to really dry, no grass. Pretty quickly, really. So we have. You may see when you bring up the map. We have had to graze a bit of our strip graze some of our silage ground as well, with just because we were getting a bit short on grass, but hopefully we're starting to turn the corner now.
Okay, cool. And you calve outside in the paddock, Jonathan?
Yeah, try to kick them outside, like just before they calve, and calve outside around the farmyard. Farmyard's one end of the farm, which makes it a little bit tricky. But yeah, that's what we try and do. So usually you've got the calving cows, we keep them really tight, so there's usually no grass really left there. Else, we don't want to go into a flush of grass, but then we move them away to the other end of the farm where there's more grass.
Yeah. And what day did you start grazing the young stock then, Jonathan?
Well, we went out for a few days in February, and I quickly decided that was a silly idea, and they came back in again. So yeah, mid of March, about 15th, we started getting young stock out. Yeah.
And were you able to put them out and for them to stay out, or did you bring them in and out for the first couple of weeks?
They did. When they went out, then they stayed out. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we were lucky it went dry, and yeah. We want a dry spring, just a bit warmer.
Yeah, maybe next year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. What's your grazing management been, or grazing policy been up to now then, Jonathan?
So it's been in the past, but that's kind of fairly ranched the farm, so very big blocks of ground. I've still got one block which is probably best part of 70 acres, which I'm intending to split up over the last year and this year. I've been splitting up some of the blocks into more rotational grazing for concentrating on the young stock initially, and they're in the smaller blocks around a hectare, and 1 to 2 hectare blocks sort of thing. And
okay, cool.
Hopefully get somewhere.
And grass measurement, what have you been doing grass measurement wise? So what have you been using, and when did you start?
So we've got a plate meter on the grant scheme, which is it's been handy to get a good idea, but it's a big farm, it's hilly, it's wet, it's boggy, it's a pain in the ass to walk the whole lot. So I've just been really concentrating on the main, one of the main blocks where I've got the heifers, one of the rotational blocks, and then kind of going from there, really get my eye in on those, judge the other covers, and working from there really.
Okay, cool. All right, let's have a look and look at your sort of roomy dashboard then, and that just give us a good overview of the farm. Perhaps you can point some things for us. So I'm just going to refresh it on my side, and I'll share a screen with you. Cool. So you'll see yourselves, and then you'll see your heel bottom of the farm. So just talk us through Jonathan. I'll just zoom in a bit so we see the farmyard.
Yeah, the farmyard's in the top right-hand corner. It runs about 2.5 miles along the river, so it's a bit it's all one block, but there is here's one end of it there. You can see, I've got various blocks. All the dark green is silage ground. Kind of would have liked to cut it probably last week, 5 days ago now. Probably would like to cut it. Hopefully we'll have the weather next week to get it cut, because I'm a bit tight of grass until we get that back into rotation really. But you can see there's a field at the bottom, towards the bottom of the picture of the field, which is half green, half white, or half yellow. That was a silage field which we've been strip grazing across, which they should finish this week really.
Okay.
It does, it's nice. It does show really well on the satellites. And we've been achieving actually quite good residuals on that. I may have had a little bit tight at one point, but they've been doing a good job. The satellite's done a good job on that one there. There's another field I did it on, it not worked. There's more grass in it, and it's not worked quite so well. They broke out twice, and I had to give up. But this one's
made worse by the wet weather, Jonathan? The breakouts, or was it?
I put in some cows which I thought were fence trained, and I don't think they were so much. And it was all right. In the morning, and in the afternoon, I was chasing around a silage field with 80 cows and calves. Wasn't ideal.
Better ways to spend an afternoon, isn't it?
It wasn't great.
No.
Probably a Sunday as well, then.
Okay.
Sorry?
Probably a Sunday as well.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I think it was actually. Yeah, yeah. There's a cow calving, and yeah, these were out. It's all going on.
Yeah, I've never seen cows wear a watch, but they seem to know what day of week it is and what time it is as well, don't they? When they choose their moments.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know if you can see the colours. There's the yellow blocks, the heifers, and then we've got a little blue block, which is the steers. Yeah, and it's roughly split up there, as you can see. I've also got towards the farmyard, but we're TB testing next week, so I've been trying to hold back some grass near the farmyard to move them into, which will give us a bit. Yeah, I need to keep them around for 4 days, really. Yeah, really close to the farmyard for TB testing. So.
Yeah. Let's go look at a couple of groups then, Jonathan. I just picked up with. We'll start with the heifers. So
yeah,
you guys can see on the left-hand side of the screen, we've got the animal groups, just like Paddy showed you in the demo. So we've got a group of heifers here, and if I click on that, sort of the screen zooms in just to give me all the fields that have been allocated to that group, get them all in focus. I get some headline figures. So I've got 88 animals in the group. So who are these, or what are these then Jonathan? Obviously,
these are, you call them like R1 heifer. So last year's heifer calves, born 2020, March, April 2020. So yeah, they'll be going to the bull now, yeah, in June.
Okay, cool. And you're mating all of those, or just proportion of that group?
Quite a lot of them, yeah. There's probably, yeah. To be honest, I think there's a couple cold cows in with them and something else. Yeah, there's a little bit, but there's all nearly all will be mated. Yeah. I tend to try and get everything in calf, or at least everything over 360, 380 kilos, and then I can always abort them or select down towards what I want. But I bull them for only about 6 weeks, the heifers. So yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's cool. And so it's just going into the animal group. We see the type of animals we've typed into the heifers. They're 400 kilos, 88 animals, and then we've got a demand of 10 kilos of dry matter per head, which is 2.5% of body weight. So it's a growing animal, and with that sort of intake allocation, we're aiming for these to grow as quickly as they can, effectively, which in this context sounds about right. Of course, those coal cows, Jonathan, we could add a new stock class and pull those coal cows into a separate group with a separate weight and demand if we wanted to be really accurate on that group's intake.
Yeah, I've been a bit lazy because they're getting picked out when we're TB testing. So
right, cool. Yeah, that's sweet. So I made no changes, so I'll just come out of that. So with the fields have been allocated, we can see that demand sits at 48 kilos of dry matter per hectare per day. And I'll just jump into the grass wedge. So just appreciate some of you may or may not be familiar with the grass wedge screen before. So what we've got on the grass wedge screen, we've got all the fields that are allocated to the group, and they're lined up in order of height from the field with the highest cover to the field with the lowest. The width of the bar, so you see some of these bars are different widths. The width of the bar is relative to the size of the field. Okay, so it's nothing to do with the order, it's just the area of the field gives the width of the bar. And what we have on the wedge is this blue line, and it's the blue line that we're using to manage. And it's the blue line which makes this tool really effective and enables us to make decisions with it. So the blue line, the start of the blue line is on the right-hand side, and the start of the blue line is set by our target grazing residuals. So our grazing residual is the amount of grass we are hoping or aiming to leave behind in the paddock after the grazing event. So I see, Jonathan, you got this set to 1700.
Yeah, I was throwing the graze down some of the permanent pasture much lower than 1700. I'm not sure whether that's actually what I was struggling, or whether it's just the field's a bit poached, whether that was limiting how far my tape meter would read down to. But I've hopped it a bit basically.
Yeah, so what, for some of you may be familiar that if we're dealing with a ryegrass situation, then we've had the target 1500, which is sort of 3.5 centimeters, so relatively, it's really short. So now to achieve that, it's certainly possible If you're moving the animals maybe every 2 to 3 days max, and you've got a new lay and it's predominantly ryegrass and it's got quite an open base so the animals can graze low, and this also needs to be good quality all the way down to the base as well, so it needs to be grazed low in the previous rotation. When it comes into things like permanent pasture, and I know particularly in Jonathan's context where even though you've got some newer lays, Jonathan, sort of to try and get that measurement of 1500 on ground that's either been grazed early and is a little bit, it's not exactly pugged, is it? It's just more slightly uneven, just because of the soil type and the nature of it. Then yeah, it's almost going to be physically impossible to graze that tight. And you know, some of the reason for grazing that tight is if it fits our situation, and in this case it may not. And to graze to 1500s, we are reducing intake of the animals. For a cow being 600 kilos to graze to 3.5 centimeters, she's going to be pretty hungry for the last 2 hours of that 24-hour break to graze that tight. So whilst it keeps good quality, it does reduce intake. And yeah, the important thing is if we're going to choose a residual target, it doesn't really matter what the target is. If it's ryegrass pasture, it probably is going to be sort of 1500 maybe to 1800. We just be really consistent with that target. So it means if we do set it as 1800 or 1700 in this case, we're aiming to achieve that on each rotation. If we start to miss it, it means we risk sort of losing quality. And then if we've got suckler cows on the farm, that's maybe not a problem. It's just an awareness we have that when we choose our residual, we just need to be consistent with that residual. And so we set it, it's a target, so it's something we physically set, but our plate meter, our eye, or Rumi tells us whether we're achieving that target. And the nice thing here, Jonathan, is that the fields that Rumi's measured, or projected the covers of, the ones that have been grazed on the right-hand side of the graph, are pretty much at 1700. So it looks like you're achieving your target. And yeah, even maybe under some slightly challenging weather conditions, it looks like you're meeting that pretty closely. So the target looks appropriate. It's set to a suitable number, and we also check that we're achieving it. So that sets the right-hand side of the graph. The left-hand side of the graph is the bit that moves and is a bit more dynamic. So what the left-hand side is set to is the animal demand, which we set in the previous screen. And then it's also set by the rotation length. So just to illustrate the point, if I change rotation length to 24 days, it lifts up. If I change it to 30 days, it lifts up again. If I change it to 50 days, it lifts up again. So what's it doing? Well, what it's saying is that these animals are allocated to a fixed area. Let's say the areas for easy mass is 10 hectares. If we want to go around that in 20 days, it's half a hectare per day. Okay, we've got a fixed number of animals and they've got a fixed demand at the moment. And what the program's saying is, okay, well, for those animals to have half a hectare a day, each hectare must have what we're calling the target pre-grazing cover. So if they can be allocated effectively half a hectare a day, there needs to be enough grass on that half a hectare. And the amount of grass that needs to be there is what they need to eat, their demand per day, plus the residual, what we want to leave behind. So if they need 1,000 kilos a day, if they need 500 kilos a day, then what we need per hectare is 1,000 kilos available to eat. If the residual is 1,700, then 1,700 plus the 1,000 that they need per hectare gives us a target entry cover of 2.7. If we slow down that rotation, we go from 20 to 40 days, then we now need 1/4 of a hectare. Well, that 1/4 of a hectare still needs to provide 500 kilos of feed. So each hectare needs to provide 2,000 kilos of feed. Our target entry cover goes from 2,700 to 3,700. So rotation length's driving this wedge, and where the line then becomes really useful for us is it shows us whether the rate of regrowth on the paddock is meeting our intended rotation length. So for instance, if I said, well, growth rates are slow, I want to go around on a 30-day round, then I put in 30 days into the rotation length, I'll review my wedge, and what I find out is that my target entry covers 3,138. The first paddock that appears in the wedge, and i.e. the first paddock I should graze, is above that. So happy days, I can go into that one. The next paddock to graze is nearly there. And Tom had finished grazing the first paddock. The next one is likely to be up to the target height, so that looks pretty good. What I get as I look further down the wedge is I've got some more paddocks that sort of aren't really on the line, and to be growing back at the right speed, we think that every paddock should be touching that line. And lower down it looks okay because I'm sort of achieving the residual, and the initial regrowth looks fine, but there's a gap in the middle. So this is showing me a bit of a deficit. And what it would mean in this instance is I've got a bit of a deficit of feed. So if 30 days is an appropriate rotation length, I'm going to need to think about doing a couple of things. I could reduce the animal intake, so I could wind them back on their demand, or I need to add some feed in. That could be another field, or it could be a supplement. As you can imagine, maybe for dairy farmers, this is quite an effective tool because their ability to supplement is really easy by seeing them twice a day in the parlour quite often. And also their ability to send the cows to the paddock with the most grass is normally pretty flexible as well. They can walk the cows to anywhere, and they're moving the cows once or twice a day, so they can just choose the right paddock. In Jonathan's context, it's a bit more challenging because he's got an order of grazing, and he's not necessarily going to skip from one field to the next and just sort of follow the highest cover. So there's a bit more of an awareness around, is the next paddock to graze at the target cover? And if it's not, it may not provide the number of days we require, which is keeping an eye on the order of paddocks and being prepared to skip one and then come back to it if we need to, and if it's sort of logistically possible.
I'm just praying that growth rate kicks off a bit, to be honest.
Yes, we can see there's a growth rate and demand situation now. I feel growth rates have probably picked up a bit more than the 30, and particularly where your average cover. So a number to keep an eye on is the average cover. It's the average height of grass on the farm, or in this part for the fields we're looking at. And grass grows grass. So the more grass that's on the farm, the higher the potential growth is. And it's really only limited by sort of sunlight, day length, and temperature. And all of those are set to increase. So I think we're seeing a growth rate is probably getting closer to being 50 by the end of this week, which would balance your supply and demand out. The growth rate figure is really useful, and I'll just show you why that's useful. Hopefully in this screen. So a little bit of this is chicken and egg, and the target entry cover is set by the rotation length. The rotation length equally is set by the growth rate. So we've got two things that rely on the other. So it's chicken and egg. So you set the rotation length, and that sets the target entry cover. But to do that, you should also be looking at the growth rate, which sets the rotation length. So the growth rate and rotation length are linked. And the way they're linked is if you consider that our target entry covers 3,000 kilos. We'll come back to this, but just take this as a given. Our target residuals 1,500. So therefore grass available with some crappy spelling is 1,500. So 3,000, they're going to go into 3,000. They're going to leave 1,500 behind. Therefore, there's 1,500 kilos per hectare available to eat. If growth rate is 50 kilograms of dry matter per hectare per day, then the rotation length should be 30 days. Because what we're saying is that if we're growing 50 a day, it's going to take 30 days to go from 1,500 to 3,000 kilos. So that's what drives our rotation length. Our rotation length is driven by the growth rate, because we don't want to go and graze a grass plant until it's fully recovered. And what does fully recovered look like? Well, in a ryegrass context, it looks like it's got 2.5 to 3 leaves this time of year. If the growth rate went up to 60, rotation length or target rotation length drops down to 25. So we go back to the pasture wedge screen and we look at the growth rate of 30, then what we need to say is, well, what's our target entry cover? And our target entry cover, as we said, is driven by the rotation length. To get out of this kind of chicken and egg situation where we need to know one, but we need to know the other, then what we can do is look at and think about what's the target entry cover for our stock class. And if we start with that, that will help us work out how much feed is available. And then we can use the current growth rate to work out our appropriate rotation length. So when we say about stock class, we've got cows and calves, we've got yearling heifers. We've got maybe wean cows from a dairy beef system, or a heifer replacement system, a replacement heifer for the dairy. We also got sheep. And as we go down through those animals, the mouth size gets smaller and smaller. So sheep should go into lower covers than cows, because for them to sort of process that grass, it should be shorter. So it's mechanically more efficient. Our target entry covers, and we'll get this sort of table shared with you guys after the webinar. Target entry covers for growing heifers around 400 kilos, I suggest is somewhere between 2,600 and 2,800 kilos. So we can see here now that the cover at the front of our wedge at 3.4 is getting high. So what it means in that context is that the heifers are not going to be able to eat that as efficiently, so therefore potential intakes are going to be reduced slightly. We may get more wastage in that situation as well, so something to be aware of. So if we take that 2.8, we drop back just for ease to our spreadsheet. We put 2.8 in there, we put 1,700. Then what we get to be available is 2.8 minus 17, which is 1,100. And then we take the growth rate that's in Rumi, gives us a rotation length of 36 days. Back to Rumi, put in 36. And what we can see is we could have a bit of a deficit. We certainly have a deficit with this current feed plan. So we look at the weather forecast, and we now try and predict what growth rates are likely to do in the next 5 to 6 days, i.e. do we need to slow up the rotation? Do we need to put some feed in to cover this deficit? Or a growth rate is going to come and meet us, and are we actually going to be able to speed up just in time? So sort of, say, a lot of farms in this just in time position, they're almost sort of getting to a deficit, but we think weather conditions are going to change by the weekend and it's all going to be okay, hopefully. So 36, we've got a deficit, but what if we say, okay, well, we predict that growth rates are going to pick up, they're going to be 50, puts us back on a 22-day round, and okay, yeah, fine, we may almost be in position of surplus pretty quick, and the question mark is, should we graze this paddock at 3,400 or not? Or could we graze half of it and then pull out? And whether
that's the field near the yard where we're going with TB testing. So next week.
yeah, fine. So in your context, you're totally going to graze that. That's going to buy you a bit of time. With the weather forecast, you can be able to see whether that pasture wedge sort of fits as you come away from that TB testing event.
Yeah, I've also got 130 acres all tied up for silage, which hopefully we'll get off next week, and yeah, 3 weeks time after that, yeah, it'll be back in as well. Yeah.
When it comes back in, that will potentially, you reallocate that area to the groups, and what that might do is might give you another challenge, which is it would drop your demand per hectare. So we're currently at 48, and that's maybe going to be quite a good fit for May and June if we get a wetter June. But then could give you a challenge if that demand drops when the silage ground comes in for grazing, if growth rates are still high. So it's either making more silage or being super careful with nitrogen application post silage making to avoid a surplus you don't kind of want or need later in the season. And that's something we review that once a week, or certainly once the silage has been made. So, right, that's pretty cool. I'm just conscious of time, so we'll flick on to Mark. But yeah, thanks for sharing with that, Jonathan. That's been a really nice example to work with that group. Has anyone got any questions with that? Okay, cool. That was pretty happy to say. Anyone, if you want to ask something as I'm speaking, just unmute yourself and jump in. Yeah, Mark, do you want to unmute yourself, and we'll jump across to you guys. And I don't know, from England looking across, you guys have had like I don't know about a perfect spring, but you seem to have had a bit more grass growth than we have. So would you mind introducing yourself, Mark, and yeah, a little bit about the farm and what stock you've got?
Yeah, well, I'm Mark Johnston from Ballymena in Northern Ireland, and we are just a dairy farm. And so we have 270 cows in the herd, and we like to get them out as soon as conditions allow. So this year was actually, James, you said there was a perfect spring, but it definitely wasn't. It was was a bit later than usual. We weren't out till about it was 18th of March, so we got out the day after St. Patrick's Day. So we always like to be out for St. Patrick's Day, but the day after, it's a bit late for our like. But anyway, since then though, it has went pretty well. The spring come on well since then. Apart from the frosty mornings.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Mark. Do you mind
hopefully now that day and night.
Do you mind dropping your video off, Mark? Because I think signal's just a little bit slow your side. And now we've seen your face. We might have to do without it just to get a better sound quality.
You're probably happy not to see it. Did that help it?
Because it's a joyful face because all this grass you've had. So
has that helped? Has it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect, Mark. Thank you.
Oh, that's dead on. Basically, we've finished the first round and we're going round the second round a lot quicker. So we are. So hopefully, with this growth coming up, a bit of heat now, we'll level things off and we'll get a lot more cows out at night and stuff.
Cool. When did you calve, Mark?
We're actually autumn calving, so we start calving in the last. We start calving last week August, and we try to have it finished for about the second week in January. So that basically the cows are going out, you know, they're over their max days in milk, so they are. So it's not that critically important that the weather's that good or the grass quality. Well, obviously you're looking good grass quality, but it's not a major importance to us.
No, and you've got some flexibility. Very flexible in the spring. They're all in the same state, aren't they? So you can turn them on as you need to. Silage feed or silage reserves permitting, and then I guess you've got a bit of flexibility about drying off, just tracking the days of milk.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Right, let's grab a look at your place. So I'll share screens again with you guys. And who's on the farm, Mark, sort of helping out and doing the work?
It's me, my dad, and my brother, just the three of us.
Cool. Yeah. Sweet. And this is the farm. So looks like, have you got are those paddocks sort of permanently fenced, Mark, or is it's just where you put your fence lines when you're grazing?
They're all just permanent for the summer, and then we take them all down in the winter we have sheep on in the winter grazing, but they're permanent all summer. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Cool. Yep. And we've got a bit of a farmyard and parlour in the middle. Well, sort of in the middle, nearly.
Yeah. It's along the road, so everything on the other side of it's the other side of the road.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And the fields we've got in yellow, that's all grazing blocks. So you'll walk cows as far out as this paddock here.
Yep.
Yep. And how far is that? Bit of context. How long the walk?
It's about a kilometre, I would say. Yeah, it would be about a kilometre.
Okay, cool. Yeah, decent. Yeah. Nice. All right. So, hey, this is a nice setup as it is with dairy. You've got just the milking cows on the block. Is it, Mark? There's no replacement heifers or anything running?
No, that there block. I actually only have mapped in Remy the block that the cows graze. I haven't any of our other ground because
no.
In Northern Ireland here, ground's that badly spread out. You would be zoomed out.
Yeah, you guys have done well to amass as much of it in one block as you have, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then you mentioned a bit earlier that you've got a couple of silage fields in the block, and they're the super dark green, and they've been cut without or due to.
We just cut them there on Thursday, so we did. So
cool.
They're into the grazing now.
Yeah. Yeah. So they'll go into the grazing block now.
Yep. Whenever the regrowth comes back.
Yeah. Okay. So what we could do with those is just add a little date. So you said you cut those last Thursday.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So we'll do that. And what do you reckon your mower height was to in terms of what you
I will just it was a contract over silage, so I would say it was probably about 1350. Normally, whenever I
Right.
make it after him, it's normally about
Yeah, fair play. So yeah, he took all the grass that was there, that's for sure.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, fair play. So we'll pop those in, and we might be able to put those into the grazing block for you as well. So that size events come across, and that's remember the figures. So that's quite nice. Okay, awesome. So let's have a look at your stock class being the milking cows. So I'll go into there and set it that group, see what's in here. So we've got some cows. Yeah, what's the breed, Mark, and what's your average cow weight at the moment?
Well, they're all Holsteins, basically Holstein, pure Holstein. We're trying to bring a bit more freezing into them for a better grazing cow, something that lasts a bit longer. But I would say that they're still the weight of a Holstein at the minute. Yeah, so they'd be 550, or sorry, they'd be more. They'd be 600, I would say.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I know within each breed there's a bit of variation, and yeah, I think we've all seen 700 kilo Holsteins as well as some 550 ones. And then you said, yeah, there's round numbers 270. We've got 264 cows here. But you also mentioned, Mark, that some of the cows are in by night still.
Yep, there's 110 in at night still.
Okay, so what we ought to do, just to give a decent feed demand, is we ought to account for those probably as like a separate group. So we'll have 154 out day and night.
Yep.
And then we'll have a stock class, which will be our kind of just day graziers, because there's a bit less demand for grass for those. The ones that are out day and night, then, do you know what you're allocating sort of grass-wise, Mark?
18, yeah.
Sorry, Mark?
18 kilos.
18 kilos from grass. Okay, cool. So cake in the pile is pretty limited at the minute.
Yep.
Awesome. That's good. Okay, so let's call these day cows, and we reckon there's similar sort of weight, and there's 110 in that group. So, what in terms of demand, Mark, are we going to go with half of that number, or a little bit more?
Yeah, I normally allocate them. Yeah, just 9.
Okay. Okay, so cool. So that's just going to give us a more accurate demand for the group, and then that will give us a more accurate sort of farm demand in that context as well. So there we are. We've got demand then on that platform of 57 kilos of dry matter per hectare per day. But what we'll do is we'll add in that extra field that's been cut for silage that will come back in. So it's not obviously grazable now, but that area is going to be growing grass for the milking herd, so it will help. And so I'm going to do that. What we'll do is move that field to milking cows. Okay, just flags up a little warning there, Mark, that you've overgrazed that field, but we'll send that message to the silage contractor. Cool. So let's drop the demand back to 55 kilos of dry matter per hectare per day, and that's given us a pretty nice wedge to have a look at. Have you got a target entry cover then, Mark, which you try and put the cows into, or what's kind of limits? How strong a cover would you put cows in?
I wouldn't put them in anything over 3,500, but it all just depends. At the minute, they're only going into 3,000. It just depends what you have at the time.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and then Ruby's predicting you've got some covers that are getting up there to be reasonably strong. And is your current round length at 22 days, or are you moving?
21.
21. Okay. Okay, so it's giving us a target entry cover with those extra fields pulled in of about 2,850, which for your cow size would be awesome. Be really good intakes. What sort of residual are you hitting then, Mark? Just looking back at what's the heights on some of the graze paddocks, perhaps?
Yeah, well, anything I've measured this year so far has been around 1,700. They're maybe a wee bit even less, 1,600.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. And obviously, we also realise that the higher covers we go into, if we start grazing stuff that's over 3, we are going to kind of really struggle to hit 1,500. Even a die-hard Kiwi cross cow is going to struggle to get down to that residual. Or if she does, then there's going to definitely be a knock-on effect to milk. So we've got to accept the higher residual. And as you said before, Mark, you guys would tend to pre-graze a little bit if you've sort of had to. Yeah, it's the consequence maybe of grazing a higher cover, leaving a higher residual, and sometimes a bit more ejection sites on the second or third round.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, growth rate stands out as being a bit low in context, but the wedge is looking okay. So with a question mark on that growth rate, if we assume that's going to be lifting, then what we're doing is okay. If we need to meet that growth rate and be somewhere out near 30-day round, that still looks really achievable. And our inch recovers high, but not super high. So because you're highly stock mark, it means that we need high growth rates for this to work. And it also explains why you're keeping cows in by night, because obviously when they come out, your demands can be even higher until you start to drive some cows off. And what we find with a grazing system is that it will prevent us from stocking too high. So we try to put more cows in that block, even with a good growth rate. To have enough grass per hectare, we need to be on a longer round, and then the cover gets too high and then we can't use the grass and it just all falls over. So once we get above the demand of sort of like 65 kilos a hectare, just like physiologically, stuff doesn't really start to work very well. Going too much grass and they can't eat it low enough, and then yeah, just sort of falls over. So yeah, where you're tracking at the moment looks sensible, but keeping those cows, and obviously was a pretty good policy, and you look like you're on the cusp of being able to release those cows, because that 21-day round is in theory showing a surplus on the wedge. So hopefully you guys can be able to react pretty quick to that. Almost immediately, if you're confident that growth is going to come up to meet you.
Yep, I will. I was due to do a measurement today, but I didn't get a chance. So hopefully tomorrow, and then we'll see. Yeah. But the way the weather's run, I would be confident they would go out at night now.
Yeah. So which is cool. That's a pretty awesome position to be in, and gets you out of a bit of scraping, and hopefully frees up some time.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Thanks, Mark. So we've got any questions with what we've just been through with Mark, or equally any questions for Mark on the system he's running? Okay, cool. No, Mark, that's pretty awesome. Thank you. Thanks for letting us share that. And yeah, I'm gonna look through.
Cool.
Awesome, guys. Right, Paddy, back to you.
Great. Thanks very much, James. Really interesting. So yeah, just a few bits to finish off with. I can see it's nearly 9 o'clock, so we'll go through at good speed. But again, stop me at any point if you've got questions. So back to the presentation quickly. I just hopefully everyone can see. Yeah, just wanted to quickly show you our tech roadmap again. So we started off with multispectral satellite images back in September 2020. 2021, we started letting farmers enter their own plate meter readings to be able to compare accuracy and calibrate the product. February, we got our 10 pilot farms set up. We've got weather stations in each. So really, we think it's the most accurate ground truthing product done yet for satellite grass readings. And then excitingly, we hope that at the end of June, we'll be able to integrate radar as well, which will, as I say, improve the frequency of dry matter updates. And then we've got some stuff Britta's quickly going to just talk about to show you some update on the radar integration, which we've got working on. Britta, do you want to just quickly talk us through these animated GIFs?
Yeah, so it's more of an explanation of what we're talking about when we say multispectral, because it sounds very fancy. But the question came up a few times, and this is really just a fancy word for a little more than visible light. So now how you have the spectrum of your visible light, like in the rainbow, and then you have a little bit above and a little bit below. And this is what the satellite actually picks up, but it picks it up passively, like you would take an image, something, right? So what this GIF here shows is just, so this greenish, this is the visible light. That's actually what you see. So on this day is a little bit cloudy, which we really don't like. And then the other gray images, this basically shows these bands that the satellite picks up, which we cannot see because it's not really visible light, it's just close to it. It is also why it doesn't have any color, because, well, we cannot see it anyway, right? Yeah. So one thing you can see here is that you still see the clouds also on these other bands, what we call them. But you can actually apply a few tricks so that at least the shadows of the clouds are not visible anymore. So if you look really closely and you focus on one of the shadows, and then you see it in the animation in the first second it's there, and then the shadows are actually gone, so you don't see them anymore. And this is so one of these tricks that we apply for the multispectral images. Yeah.
Cool.
So and regarding the what?
Cool. sorry, Britta.
And then regarding the yeah, okay. So and then radar, same thing. So just a quick explanation like what this means, because we always talk about radar, but never really say what this means, right? So radar is actually pretty similar, also an electromagnetic wave, just on a very different spectrum. So in this case, it's a microwave, and microwave really means like a microwave that comes from the microwave oven, just at a very, very low, not trigger, but very, very low intensity. So yeah, so it has a bit of a pro that is it can see through clouds. So you can see it a little bit on the edges here in this animated GIF, right? So this is not a problem. But there's definitely one con that is, I mean, if you look at visible light, you have a whole lot of range of light, right? For this particular imagery, what the satellite does is actually shooting some rays, but it only has one frequency. But there's another trick how we can get two images, right? And this is similar to when you go to cinema and you have your 3D glasses, right? So this is polarization glasses that you usually wear. And this is the same trick basically that the satellite takes. So it measures two kinds of polarizations of this that come back. This is why we have two images. And if you look here, so the two gray images, this is the two polarized images that we get back from the satellite, right? Yeah, and you can see, for example, that there is some structure in there already. Like, for example, these hedgerows, you can see them already. And if you look really closely, if you focus on a field that is plowed right now or that has bare soil, you will also see that there's a noticeable difference in the two images come after the green one. So in these two polarizations. So we see that definitely radar tells us something, but it's much harder to interpret for a human than it is now for regular light. And all of this is sort of uncharted territory so far. I mean, there's some research about it, but yeah. That's basically what we're working on right now. Yeah, and it was just an explanation. So you get an idea of what we're talking about. Yeah.
Thanks, Britta. That's awesome. And you can tell just listening to Britta speak there, like how engaged she is with it. So Britta's just spending like huge amounts of time, like sussing out all this stuff so we can turn it into useful insights for people like you, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to finish off by mentioning our early bird special offer for Rumi. So some of you guys are new in recent weeks, in which case you've still got a couple of months to trial the product, and some of you might even be getting close to the end of your trial period. We think there's some great benefits in this early bird offer. So £1 per hectare per month, we believe you could save a lot more on reducing your fertilizer spend and your spend on winter feed. On top of that, we're offering everybody with the early bird offer a 30% discount on their first annual subscription. So it's actually 70p per hectare per month rather than £1 per hectare per month. And then Rumi, we're not just the digital product. We also provide monthly webinars, just like the one you've had tonight, throughout the year. And we are here to give you as much support as we possibly can to get your grazing systems working as best as they possibly can. So we're developing this digital product to be as good as it can, but it's a whole service that we offer. And we're here to answer questions whenever. Also, you saw James use the consultant access tool this evening, so he could switch between different farms. If you have a consultant, you can give them access to your farm and they can provide you with remote support for your grazing platform. We work with a range of consultants actually, but we can make it available to your preferred choice. And of course, some of you are already using it and starting for free. Those of you who are new to it, or if you know other people who want to get started, there's no upfront commitment. You know, you're welcome to just get in there, have a play, and see if it works for you. To unlock the discount, we ask you to enter a few farm walks at the start when you start using Rumi, or during your first couple of months trialing it. So this will help calibrate your farm to Rumi so that we can give you better results. And it's also really useful to us. The more data we've got from the ground about your farm, the better we can make the product, the faster we can make a really good product for you. So it's 5% discount per farm walk. We ask you to enter at least a minimum of 2 walks for your 10% discount, or up to 6 for the 30% discount. So for 100, if you have 100 hectares on your farm, that's £360 off a year. So hopefully that means something. And of course, get your walks entered in the first 2 months. If you're getting to the end of your kind of first couple of months and you didn't manage to get your 6 walks in, it's also okay if you want to send us previous walks by CSV files or Excel files or something like that. If you've got the data, no problem, just send us the historical walks. That's really useful for us. And then just finally, our slide to say, we're a small growing team. We really, really care about what we're doing. We're building this product because we want to help farmers, and we want to champion people like you, and we want to see farms prosper and thrive. We're here to talk anytime. We want to hear your feedback. We want to know how you think we should improve the product. If you ring us, you will get straight through to a human being. It's going to be Charlie or me, and we'll do our best to give you the support you need when you need it. And so please don't hesitate. Anything you want to talk to us about at all, just give us a ring, no problem. And that's the end of the presentation. So yeah, any questions we can answer, please fire away. Anything at all?
I've got a question. Sorry.
No, how small an area can you actually measure via the Rumi, Patrick?
How small an area?
Yeah, I split my fields paddocks up into whatever. What's the limiting factor? Is it half an acre or less or more or whatever?
So each pixel of our multispectral image is 10 meters by 10 meters squared. So you would get a dry matter reading for every 10 meters squared of land you have. So that would probably be the smallest amount, but half an acre, no problem.
Okay, yeah, thanks for that.
I was just going to ask a question about rejection sites and how we should be measuring those, and how Rumi accounts for those too. Because now it's gone wetter. Probably some fields are 20% rejection at the minute with a short round, which obviously Rumi satellite measures all the grass in the field. Looks like there's more than there is. Whereas if I put a plate meter and I don't measure the rejection sites, there's less there. So yeah, is there any account of rejection, or do we need to take an account of rejection?
James, is that one you might know?
I think that's for Charlie to answer, surely.
Yeah, definitely. Go for it.
No, I think the rejection sites is a bit like whatever program you're using, and even if you're using a plate meter and it's saying how much feed's available, there's a manual check, isn't there? And with that residual, especially with changing weather conditions, and as we move towards quicker rotation lengths, we'll see more rejection sites potentially. So a couple of things to do to be careful is to, if you're dealing with animals that are growing or increasing in weight, make sure that's updated reasonably regularly so you've got an accurate demand, and then that will help you kind of balance your supply demand, and also make sure you've got an accurate sort of days per field in terms of grazing. So make sure animal number and weight is updated regularly so you get the accurate demand. Check the residual, either measure with a plate meter and then see if you account for rejection sites, and obviously we just compare that to Rumi. So if you are updating your grazing events in Rumi via your phone in the paddock, then by eye or by plate meter, just measure and maybe have a look to see what Rumi said that paddock was at, just to be able to feedback, because this is some things that we haven't, or Rumi probably haven't dealt with completely, and every farm will be a little bit different. So it'd just be nice to get some feedback now, what those rejection sites have. Are they impacting that cover post-grazing, or is Rumi kind of giving you the true average, and that matches up to your plate meter? Because none of the tools we're using is particularly accurate. The most accurate tool we have are the cows or the animals, and they're actually telling us how much feed is truly available. The plate meter is a bit variable, and so we're expecting Rumi to be a bit variable as well. We just need to know, you need to be the sort of source of truth with that, and tell us what was left behind.
Cool.
So yeah, to check right number of animals, right weight, right demand, do that to start with, and then if you grazed out the paddock, either have a look at Rumi. If you're doing it retrospectively, 2 or 3 days later, you might have a cover from Rumi, just see how that matches. If you're entering that grazing event manually, then it'll be asking you for a cover anyway. So you'll be keeping this accurate as you go forward by putting in that grazing event.
And should we be putting in the overall cover, or the actual cover of the cover for the whole paddock, or just the cover of the bit they're eating?
I'd take a 30 plonk sample, and if you pick up a rejection site or two, then that's probably fine, because that is the cover that's in the field, and it's a look and see decision how you're going to deal with those rejection sites, but that is the feed that's available. So whether you're going to make the cows eat it, and if you get dry, you might do. So you want to know how much grass is available, because it is feed to be grazed, even if they've missed it on this round. If it turned into a drought in June, would know, then you could still eat that grass. So that is the true amount of grass that's on the farm. So I would do a true 30 plonk measure if you are going to measure post-grazing, and put that number in. Chris, did you have a question?
Yeah, some of the paddocks I've mapped them out on the map, and haven't actually plate metered them for a while, but it says last updated on the 18th of April or whatever it was when I read them last. Is the figure, when you hold your finger over that field, it shows a figure of 4,250 in the one field, but there's 300 ewes and lambs in there, so there's definitely not that much grass in there, even though I haven't plate measured it since the 24th of April, but it's still showing that high count. Why hasn't Rumi remeasured it for me? What am I doing wrong?
So we sometimes we don't capture every single grazing event at the moment, because the satellite takes 4 to 5 days to pass each time, and between satellite passes we've got our grass growth model predicting daily grass growth. So it will, if we don't know the field's being grazed, we'll assume that the grass is growing all the time, and
right.
That's why we've got this feature which allows you to kind of reset fields if you've got grazing events or mowing. We hope though that when radar comes along, it will increase the frequency at which Rumi can update, so you might not have to do that reset quite as often.
The measurements, as you say, the measurements I got there from my plate meter calibration then. So yeah, a lot of my stock is still set stock because we haven't just finished lambing. We haven't tailed and grouped the stock up as yet. So I haven't allocated all the sheep to sheep and cattle to certain areas, because it's been too wet to group them together, and we haven't managed to group the stock up as much. So I see what you mean. I need to put a grazing event in there rather than leave it to silage, so that it's not calculating that growth. Someone is actually eating it, yeah?
Yeah, that's it, Chris. Well, when you're set stocked, yeah, so you've just got set with Rumi, you've mapped your fields, and it's pulled up the cover it thinks it's there based on the last satellite pass plus the growth rate it's estimated since that satellite pass. Because in the context, it doesn't know where your sheep are.
Yeah,
it's not a camera looking at the farm all the time. It's passes, and sometimes the passes get missed because of the cloud cover. At the moment, as you said, that's what they're working on to get higher. even if we got a radar cover every day, it'd still be inaccurate because the radar might pass, and then you move your stock the next 4 hours later.
Yeah.
So there would always be in this a little bit to be super accurate. There's always gonna be a manual kind of upload of, I've grazed the paddock and shifted the stock. Now, when you're set stocked, to get really accurate now, because your stock is spread out, you haven't really got any grazing events. It's like one constant grazing event because they're effectively not moving, are they?
Yeah.
And so you would go to the plate meter, let's say this week, enter in the covers. That would reset Rumi to be the truer value, and then the paddock will start growing. And if your timing or progression is to move through to mobbing up into a rotation, then as you did that rotation, that become much easier to enter your grazing events because we've got fields 1, 2, 3, 4 for this group of stock. And so once a week, we just tell Rumi that we've grazed at that paddock. And then
so would you class that as a part graze then? Or?
No, you just enter the event when the paddock had finished being grazed. And the reason to do that.
But if it's set stocking, would you just not leave it as a part graze then?
Yeah, Rumi's a bit different to AgriNet. So AgriNet has a part grazed where you've measured the cover and it's less than it was last time, but you haven't finished grazing it.
Yeah.
Whereas Rumi doesn't kind of need to have that position because it's looking at the grass growth rate. So we don't really get in that position of a weekly measure and the paddock is less grazed. So if you did 2 or 3 plate meter measurements, then yeah, you may enter that in as a part grazed event. But in Chris's context, the first plate meter measurement, he wouldn't enter as part grazed, he'd just enter the covers. That would reset Rumi. And then going forward, he'd just enter in when he'd moved out of a paddock. And that would mean the wedge was in the correct order.
Right, okay.
Okay. So once he grazed the paddock, he'd enter, let's say, 1500, okay? And then either the satellite image would pick that up and say what the new cover was, but whilst that satellite image is coming around, the grass growth model is just running all the time. So even if there wasn't a satellite pass between grazing paddock 1 and then going back into paddock 1, as long as the grazing event had been recorded, the grass growth model would be putting that cover back up again. And then what Chris might do is he may plate meter again sometime in the middle and then just update it if needed, or he'd just come and graze that paddock and then enter that grazing event again. Okay, so the grazing events are the important bits to add in, and then that just keeps the grass wedge updated, and the grass growth model is always running, but it doesn't know what paddocks you've grazed.
Cool.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's nice and easy to do from your mobile as well. It's a web app that should fit nicely on a mobile screen, so you can do it there and then.
Is there actually an app, Paddy, or do we just log in?
Coming soon. At the moment, it's a case of logging in through the web on your mobile.
That's what I've been doing. Yeah,
we're on the case.
No, it's not a job for Charlie actually, but he's a bit slow starting the stuff.
I'm an app designer now, as well as a
Get the beers, get the t-shirts, design
that's it, exactly.
Measure Chris's grass for him, and then if you can mob up the ewes and lambs as well whilst you're there,
I may as well.
Yeah.
I'll pop me waterproof trousers.
And stop it raining before you go, so that it's dry enough to.
I'll take it. I'll get the shorts out then.
Farming like's easy, isn't it?
Something like that.
Are you able to record rainfall and soil temperatures on Rumi, or is that just on the pilot farms?
At the moment, we do that on the private farms only, but they're pretty evenly distributed across the country. So we've got them in the southwest, the southeast, across Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland. So that's what we're using at the moment, and we can get soil temperature, rainfall, wind speed, all those kind of things from those weather stations.
Okay.
Is that something you record at the moment, Roger? Do you plug that data in weekly into AgriNet?
Yeah.
And is it something you look back on? Is it something you use, or is it just a record keeping?
Yes, it is quite interesting to see what he was doing this time last year, just to compare from year to year, really.
Yeah, where's your soil temperature been, comparing last year or normal?
Oh, much slower. I think we've had frost most mornings in April, haven't we? So, soil temperatures very much lower, really.
Okay, let's say that. It's just interesting. I know some guys put it in, and sometimes it's rare to find someone who uses it afterwards. But having that history to look back on is quite good. So that's something to Paddy to keep a note of. It's just that record keeping option for those guys who haven't got weather stations.
Cool.
Are you any closer to mapping the whole of my farm, Paddy, or have I still got a black strip down the middle?
So that's why Danny isn't here, one of our other engineers, Chris, because he's working on it at the moment. We're
Good man.
Get rid of the grey fields, won't do. So yeah, Chris has mentioned there's a bug which means every like 1 in 1,000 fields goes grey at the moment, but we're sorting it out.
I got 6.
It's to do with if you have a farm on the edge of a quad key, which is a 25 by 25 kilometer photograph that the satellite takes, there's a chance of that happening. That's why you've got a line, Chris, which is you're unlucky, but we're on it, and we'll fix it.
The thing, the issue is, I think Chris thought he was 1 in a million. It turns out he's 1 in 6,000.
Yeah.
So, yeah, not quite so special.
Yeah, but no, we'll get it fixed, Chris. Listen, it's been a great session. I don't know if there's any final questions, but if not, like, just get in touch with us anytime, email, phone, whatever. We do really want to hear from everybody, and you know, as much as you want to get in touch with us, we're happy to answer. So thank you very much for joining tonight. Thank you to James for really running an engaging session. And yeah, any final questions at all, or should we call it a wrap? Okay.
Cool. Right, sounds like dinner time. And thank Jonathan and Mark. Thank you guys very much as well for coming on and sharing.
Of course, I forgot to mention. Yeah, Jonathan and Mark, thank you very much. Stars of the show.
Cool. Awesome. Right. Everyone has a good, nice weekend. And yeah, let's look forward to surplus grass surpluses heading into next week.
Right. Cheers then.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Hey guys.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Get well. See you soon.